You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katie.
Welcome back!
You had your NPR voice on again.
I know, and I was trying to
Now that I've called you on it, you're trying to
well, I was also trying to
it.
not rush through it. I feel like sometimes I do accidentally do the intro super fast, but it is by accident. It's so I don't forget the name of the podcast. Because if I think about it too hard, I will forget it. I'm like, the tales you tell? Is it you? Is it we? I don't remember what it's called. Well, welcome back 3 days later.
Mm-hmm.
4, I don't remember. We recorded on Thursday. And it is now Sunday. How you been?
Pretty good. I got a lot more sleep than usual last night, which was odd. But I did it, so yeah. 9 hours, kids. That's wild. I mean, I didn't sleep for 9 hours, but that was...
Was there a period during that 9 hours that you were, worried? No.
I didn't wake up at all. I passed out last night, because I normally do. I normally feed the critter, put it in his crib. I might have enough energy to read a page or two of a book, and then I'm out. And Shelton comes to bed later. He does not wake me up. I am dead to the world, and until Critter wakes me up, and he doesn't wake up crying usually. It's usually he'll make a noise, and that wakes me up. And so I'm like, did he make noise and I just slept through it last night? But I don't think so, because I wake up at nothingness.
Except when Shelton comes to bed.
No, I don't wake up.
Oh,
when he comes to bed.
Yeah, but you wake up when Critter makes little tiny noises.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the joke I was making.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I mean, just because I got a little bit more sleep than usual last night does not mean I'm any less out of it.
Oh man, I have a couple announcements. The first one is 2 shout-outs. The first one is our official Hemlock and Crow shout-out, because they sent us some very adorable bandanas. Oh. They also sent a candle, which is in the bedroom, sorry. Really? I know. A hair tie that has a skull crow on it.
Oh, cute.
Also very cute.
Also in the bedroom.
Also in the bedroom. Yeah, and she was just being nice. She's just a listener, and I think I commented.
Well, thank you for sharing, even if Hannah doesn't.
Listen, kidding. I was like,
I just want to see the goodies.
They're over there. I made an Instagram post about it. Check our Instagram.
I liked it.
So I actually was going to offer you Scoobies, because it's a little small, which is my fault, because I told her, I was like, I'm sure a medium will fit him. It does not. I mean, it does. So I was going to offer that to Olive. Just
it won't fit Jory.
Judging by Jory's neck. We'll put a link to her Instagram, but she also sells fun shirts and accessories, such as tumblers that I have considered buying for us. One has a spooky moth, which would be yours, obviously.
Yes.
And then one has a crystal ball.
Cool.
Which would be mine, because it's not the moth. I just got cool t-shirts and I don't know, stuff I feel like all of our listeners would like. So it's Hemlock and Crow, and again, we will post that link. And thank you so much, Montana, because we love everything. We love all the stuff. The second one is a site. I don't think she has an Instagram. Her name is Tiffany, and her company is Tiffany's Treasure Chest. So this is a girl that Jarek and I met at the Renaissance Fair a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And she makes these really cool custom dice. And Jarek is really into D&D now. So he was looking at the dice. She makes some that are liquid core. So they're like resin, but then the center of them is liquid. It's super cool.
Fun.
If you're not into dice, she also makes jewelry, and she makes other resin things. For example, what I ordered from her which is a galaxy mixed colored coffin box.
Oh, yeah, you told me about the little coffins.
I'm really excited about it. She sent me a picture of the coloring to make sure I liked it. And she's local-ish. She's not local enough that I'm not going to have her ship the thing to me. Mm-hmm. But her prices are, like, very reasonable, and she's super nice. And also, getting a coffin box to keep all my stuff in. Like, I don't know what I'm going to put in it yet. Crystals, stickers, jewelry. Whatever. I'll take a picture of it when it gets here. She doesn't have an Instagram, but she does have a website, and I'm just going to link the website. Another announcement, that's it with the shout-outs. We do have a special episode coming out theoretically today, if Jarek can get it edited in time.
Probably a lot to edit.
I told him, he's like, I'm not really going to edit it that much. I was like, oh, you're going to have to do some editing. And he's like, I'll probably just leave in the swear words. And I was like, oh, actually, we gave you a challenge at the beginning about the swear words, so... we'll see how that turns out.
It's a hot mess, so enjoy.
It is a little bit of a hot mess.
Well, it wasn't structured.
It wasn't structured, but it was good. It was, like, cathartic for me. It's just me and Katy sitting around talking about mental health. And also, there might be a special guest, which is a segue into my next announcement, which is that Critter finally loves me.
Yes.
And I'm really excited about it. And he didn't cry at all when I was holding him. And he fell asleep. Excuse me.
Once he got settled, he was good.
Yeah, and Katy has these beautiful pictures of me and him just staring at each other lovingly. And it's so cute.
I'm surprised you haven't posted them yet.
I was going to wait until that episode came out. But they're saved on my phone. Don't worry.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah. And then my final announcement is also a request for good vibes. Because Scooby went on a meet and greet today. And Scooby, if you're not following, is our foster dog that we've had for over a year. And I love him dearly, but he is a foster, and...
You have no intention of keeping him.
We have never had any intention of keeping him, although we love him. And he's been really hard to adopt out for some reason, and he had a meet and greet today, and it went really well. And he's going on trial with them Friday. So when I drop him off on Friday, that could potentially be the last time he is here. And I have mixed feelings about it, and I've already cried about it, and I don't know. So send your good vibes to Scooby. Send your good vibes to me and to Jarek. But fingers crossed, because it's been a long time coming, and this seems like a really good fit for him. She has like 6 acres for him to run around on.
Yeah.
He's going to love it. Okay. So I thought for this week we could dive back into... sort of a conspiracy theory.
Fun.
Sort of. It is an unsolved mystery, but there's also some conspiracy to it. And I think you'll remember it because it happened not very long ago. Mm-hmm. We are talking about the disappearance of Malaysian Flight 370. Mm-hmm. Full disclosure, if you're going to fly anywhere soon, just skip this episode, wait till you're back and not flying anywhere, because I'm now terrified.
Oh, is this going to kind of cure me of my wanderlust for a little bit?
Oh, yeah, I'm never getting on a plane. Although I did just text Jenna and say, yeah, we're going to fly to Florida for this wedding. Maybe not. Okay, my main sources for this, one is an article in The Atlantic called What Really Happened to Malaysia's Missing Airplane. And then Stuff You Should Know did a really good 2-part episode on this in January of 2020. So I'm using both of those episodes, plus The Atlantic, plus a bunch of miscellaneous sources. Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, which I'm going to be referring to as MH370 because that's how it's referred to everywhere, was a Boeing 777-200ER with a total capacity of 282 passengers. And on March 8th, 2014, it was traveling from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, carrying 227 passengers, including 5 children, 10 flight attendants, and 2 pilots. The joke I was going to make at the beginning was Kuala Lumpur.
Ah, there it is.
Makes sense now. The passengers were from 15 different countries, although the majority of them were from China and Malaysia. And after that, the rest of the passengers were from Indonesia, Australia, India, France, the United States, Canada, Iran, New Zealand, Ukraine, Hong Kong, the Netherlands, Russia, and Taiwan.
I've been to several of those places.
Oh, great. Have you been to Malaysia? Oh, when?
When I lived in Singapore.
Oh, I forgot about your fancy little childhood.
I don't remember much, so, like, there's that.
That's okay.
Real quick, I heard this short segue, I heard another conspiracy theory the other day.
Ooh.
And this comes from Scott, so, you know.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Take it with a very large grain of salt.
It's about the Titanic and how apparently there is a sister ship that was identical to the Titanic that had some damage before it left port. So what they did was they just switched out the nameplates and sent out the damaged boat, knowing that it was damaged and it might sink as part of an insurance fraud scheme. And then I made some joke about how, you know, the conspiracy theory and, you know, regular boats have something in common. They don't hold water.
But
It wasn't that good. It was a
something
stretch.
that conspiracy theory and the Titanic do not have in common is that the theory does not hold water.
Yeah.
The Titanic famously does. After having a large gash ripped in it by an iceberg. Okay. So on this Boeing 777, there were two pilots. There was a pilot and a co-pilot. So the pilot was Zahari Ahmed Shah, who was 53. He was a veteran pilot from Penang, an island on... Oh. What am I trying to say? A Malaysian island.
Yeah.
An island that's part of Malaysia. Thank you.
Island off the coast of Malaysia?
Thank you. I was trying to say, like, also part of the country Malaysia.
A Malaysian island?
A Malaysian island. Oh, wow.
An island of Malaysia?
An island of Malaysia. Thank you. Woo! Okay. He had over 18,000 hours of flight experience. So he had been flying for a while. Very experienced, good at his job. The co-pilot was 27-year-old Farik Abdul Hamid. He was technically still in training to become a first officer. So he had nearly 3,000 hours of flight experience, and MH370 was his last training flight before he was going to be evaluated to become a first officer.
Okay.
And also on a side note, I read in the Atlantic article that in Malaysia, you call pilots by their first name. So Captain Zahari and First Officer Farik. So that's what I'm going to be doing instead of calling them Captain Shah and First Officer Hamid. So Captain Zahari, First Officer Farik. Okay. So MS-370 departed Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 12:42 a.m. local time. The flight duration was supposed to be 5 hours and 34 minutes, and the estimated arrival in Beijing was around 6:30 a.m. At 1:01 a.m., Captain Zahari reported to air traffic control that they had reached their cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. And this wasn't super unusual, but you normally, I guess, only report when you're leaving an altitude, not when you're at your altitude. But it wasn't weird enough that anyone was like, no one noticed it. No one thought it was weird until after, obviously. At 1:08 a.m., MH370 crossed the Malaysian coastline and headed towards Vietnam across the South China Sea, and Captain Zahari again reported their altitude at 35,000 feet. At 1:29 a.m., Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Control contacted MH370 to let them know that they were about to leave Malaysian airspace and enter into Vietnamese airspace, and to check in with the Ho Chi Minh Air Traffic Control. So, Kuala Lumpur says, Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. And 120.9 was the frequency. I guess you're supposed to.
Yeah, whenever I'd go flying for work, it's a small little, 2 to 3 person little prop plane.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they have to do the same thing. Is the reporting kind of altitude, and then whenever they are going to change to a different airspace area. So like when we get up to a different part of the state, we're like, okay, well this is the next airport over here.
Gotcha.
We got to check in with them and let them know, and
make sure that they know that there's a plane nearby.
Yeah, and especially since some of the areas that we fly around, there's a lot of military bases. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we either have to be sure that we go well around.
Gotcha.
Or I think there's been times where we've had to, call in and been like, hey, can we fly into this airspace? And a lot of times they're cool with it. But,
yeah.
But that's just because of the relationship between the pilots, that airport, and the military base.
Airspace is such a weird thing to me. Mm-hmm. It's like, are you just drawing vertical lines up from the ground and breaking up the sky? It's the sky! That's like,
It's kind of like just like a very tall, weird, invisible fence. Like, okay, you can fly over, but you gotta get permission.
Does airspace extend, like, is there an altitude limit to airspace? Do you know? Like, if you go up high enough?
I don't think so.
I mean, space, obviously.
I think because, anything that's going at, a super crazy high altitude is both literally and metaphorically above airspace issues.
Yeah, I mean...
Get my little joke?
Yeah.
But no, if it's something like it's in the stratosphere, it's probably like a government sanctioned thing. So
yeah, but satellites can just be wherever they want.
I think once you're in space, it's a different story.
Who has control over that airspace?
I mean, there probably is a relative altitude of airspace laws must be you must abide airspace laws.
We sound real smart right now.
Up to a certain altitude.
If we have any pilots that
I'm
are
not
listening.
a pilot. I'm related to pilots, so maybe I should know this. I spend a lot of time with pilots for work, but...
Yeah, if we have any pilots listening...
Next time I go flying for work, I'll ask.
Yeah, ask if...
Especially since I have to go back to work soon.
Oh,
I do wanna, though.
I offered to be your personal daycare.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I'm asking to quit my job and just...
Be a nanny?
Yeah, be a nanny. Now that he likes me, it's more conceivable. So, Kuala Lumpur has said their thing. So, Captain Zahari replies and says, "Good night, Malaysian 370." And he did not read back the frequency. Which, again, I guess they were like, that's kind of weird, but not weird enough to say anything.
Yeah, I feel like... I don't know anything about commercial airliners or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think just kind of in general, for a lot of people and a lot of jobs and such, you can kind of get into that real comfort routine thing to where you can, slack off on some of the tiny details. But at the same time, the pilots that I fly with, again, it's not a commercial airliner.
Yeah.
But most of these guys are, they're flight instructors. Mm-hmm. So they're pilots / flight instructors because that's how they get their hours. So you've got to have a certain amount of hours in the air before you can go to commercial flight school.
Right.
So, of course I develop a relationship with these pilots and we always have a great time and I tell them all about, the work that we're doing and, good time in the air, and then they leave me for Delta or United. And then I've got to break in a new pilot and be like, all right, buddy, this is how it's going to be. But they always, they've got a checklist and they go through, a printed out checklist.
Yeah.
And they literally go through every single step. And as far as I know, they're following all those steps to a T.
Yeah.
And, it would be one thing, sure, if I was their student, because they'd be making sure that we were both going through it. But, when you get into the car, you don't, every time you get in the vehicle, sit there and go, okay, mirrors are here, hands at 10 and 2, this, everything check.
I never check my mirrors. Until I'm driving, and then I'm like, I can't see the car behind me.
So, I can see, people doing that, but at the same time, I don't feel like pilots are those kind of people who would just, play it a little fast and loose,
Yeah, and again, once we get into, I don't know, the nitty-gritty of this, all of these little details kind of start to seem important.
They start adding up.
Yeah. So, Zahari says, "Good night, Malaysian 370," and that was the last radio communication from MH370. They never checked in with Ho Chi Minh, And 5 seconds after crossing into Vietnamese airspace, the transponder on MH370, which I'll get into that, disappeared from the secondary radar. 37 seconds later, at 1:21 a.m., the entire plane disappeared from the radar altogether.
Whose radar?
The air traffic control radar.
For Ho Chi Minh or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
basically, Ho Chi Minh, though the flight never checked in with air traffic control, they still picked them up. Because that was going to be my question, is like, how do we know that they did enter Vietnamese airspace?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm going to give a quick and dirty, I'm going to call it a lesson, although I just learned about it. The difference between primary and secondary radar. Are you familiar at all with those? Okay.
Learn me.
Okay, so primary radar.
Let's see if my dad knows this. This is something he would be a nerd about.
Gosh, my dad too. So, and I almost called him today, but he's just coming back from vacation. Anyways, so yeah,
Dads of the podcast.
Fact check me. Primary radar, as I understand it, is kind of like echolocation. You send electromagnetic pulses out over a large area, and they bounce off of an object, and you then receive information about where that object is. And I think of the opening scene of Top Gun, where they're tracking the bogies, and they're like, it's here, and it's coming in at this rate.
That's funny because I was thinking Spaceballs.
Oh, again.
And he says we've lost the beeps, the sweeps, and the creeps.
Didn't you have Spaceballs on that one time?
Yes, we did.
I wasn't paying attention. I was very distracted. So, secondary radar depends on a transponder on board the vessel, and it receives information about the plane beyond just the location and like the direction it's going. So the transponder identifies the plane, number one, can tell you like where it's going, how fast it's going, the altitude it's at, all that stuff. So secondary radar is what air traffic control uses to keep all of the planes from flying into one another. It seems very confusing whenever I see, like in movies, all of the flights that I'm like, seems like too many flights to keep from. Seems like we should limit it to like maybe 10 a day. I don't know. Okay, so MH370 has dropped off the radar. So Kuala Lumpur air traffic control didn't notice because they were like,
they're no longer tracking it. If it's not in their airspace, they're not tracking it anymore.
We've handed you over to Ho Chi Minh.
Yep.
We assume that they have it under control. We've said our goodbyes, good nights, whatever. Ho Chi Minh did notice, and they tried to contact MH370 a couple times.
Because they're like, hey, because you said 5 minutes after they entered airspace.
5 seconds.
5 seconds. Oh.
5 seconds. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was 5 seconds, but I was like, no, I must have misheard.
No.
Or misremembering. No.
5 seconds. So they tried to contact.
Well, they were on it then if they had it for only 5 seconds. Or they knew it was coming or something.
But here's the thing. So international protocol says that within 5 minutes, you need to be contacting someone about this missing blip. Somehow, even though they tried to contact MH370, it was 18 minutes later before Ho Chi Minh Air Traffic Control contacted Kuala Lumpur to let them know that something was wrong. And then, for whatever reason, be it like missteps, mismanagement, no one knew what to do, an emergency response wasn't started until 6:32 a.m., which was theoretically when that flight should have been landing in Beijing. So it was several hours later before they got anyone on it. So this plane just disappears, and 5 hours later
everyone's like, all right, well, that's interesting. We'll worry about that in a little bit. Maybe it'll show up again.
Yeah, I imagine that perhaps they were I feel like a lot of people were like, well, this isn't my job. I wasn't trained for this. I don't know what to do.
Well, I don't know. I mean, have you ever gone looking for something in your house? Like, where did I put that, that book? Where did I put that thing? And you look all over and you can't find it, you're like, you know what? I'm just going to stop looking for it for a little bit, and I'll come back, in
Mm-hmm.
5 hours when I need to have the thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll look for it, and I'll probably have
Maybe
better
someone wrote it on a sticky note and then, like, accidentally put their coffee down on the sticky note, and then, like, something else happened, and then 5 hours later, it fell off the coffee pot or the coffee cup, and they were like, oh, shit, I gotta go tell someone.
I wish I knew that we were doing an airplane story, because I definitely would have asked for a glass of water, so at some point I could throw the water in my face and be like, I have a drinking problem. Airplane.
Oh, I need to rewatch that. It's been several years. Did it age well, do we think? No. Okay, I didn't think so.
Lots of jokes are like, ooh. Ooh. Some of them are still freaking hilarious.
The drinking problem one is still right on point.
Still gold.
And the Shirley. Shirley, you must be joking.
I'm not joking. And don't come.
Okay, so because where MH370 had lost communication, which was over Vietnam, most of the search and rescue was concentrated around the South China Sea, because people going to notice if
it crashes to land,
crashes on land,
someone's going to report that.
Yeah, so
there's very few places on this earth that would have a plane flying over it.
Yes.
That a plane could crash and still go unnoticed.
Yes, I agree. I'm going to pull up a map for us later. I just assume you know where everything is. I don't. So I would encourage any geographically challenged person to just look at a map of Malaysia. Beijing is like northeast, mostly north, a little northeast. It crosses right over Vietnam, and then the South China Sea is right to the east. So, yeah, so they're assuming it just kind of veered off to the east.
I can see there's, by the way.
There's, okay, thank you.
So that's why I've been told.
I gotcha. She just showed me where Singapore was, which I wasn't going to ask. I was just going to quietly look it up later. So the search and rescue situation involved 34 ships, 28 aircrafts, and 7 different countries. So it's really a group effort. And then several fucking days later, let me repeat, several fucking days later, the Malaysian Air Force revealed, actually, we were able to track MH370 for like an hour after you guys lost it. And you know where it didn't go? The South China Sea. Do you know where it did go? Literally the opposite direction from there.
So, where?
So, let me tell you. As soon as it disappeared from the radar, it turned sharply to the southwest, and it flew back across Malaysia. It flew over Penang Island, and then it turned northwest across the Andaman Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you say it? And then it went out of range at 2:22 a.m. So, I'll show you the little...
So basically it was heading off kind of in the direction generally of India or Myanmar.
Yes.
Bangladesh.
And so that is the flight path that it took. It literally turned around, looked like it was going to come back.
West of Thailand.
And then veered off.
And what time did they enter? I'm sure you're going to get to this. The Vietnam airspace.
So 1:21 is approximately 1:20, and then so the military was able to track them with their radar for an additional hour. So 2:20 is when they lost them. And then in addition to the military being able to track it, it also turns out that the flight had automatically pinged a geostationary Indian Ocean satellite operated by Inmarsat, which is a British satellite telecommunications company. Mm-hmm. They're not important. The fact that they have a satellite that sent these signals is important. So basically, these were kind of automatic pings, so it wasn't anything that the flight was like initiating.
Right.
There were 4 different ways that the Inmarsat satellite could communicate with the plane, so it would pick up on any of these. One was data or voice transmissions from the plane, which there were none. One was communication attempts from the ground to the plane. One was what they called handshakes, which on Stuff You Should Know, they described it as, you know when you're watching a ton of Netflix and then they give you that screen that's like, are you still there? Mm-hmm. It's like that. It's just checking in, making sure you're still there. And then when the satellite on the plane reboots, it automatically sends out like a logon request to the satellite up in space. So that had been able to kind of track, in a way, MH370 for an additional several hours. And the reason they were able to do this, this is our fun little terrifying side story, is because planes, I guess in general, maybe, had been upgraded. Recently, they had upgraded their communications capabilities after the Air France Flight 447 disaster of 2009. Do you know about that one?
It sounds familiar, but no. It's been way too long for me to remember, and B, in 2009, I didn't care about much but myself. So
same. Well, I'm going to tell you about it, and this is an abbreviated version. It's terrifying, though. On May 31st of 2009, Air France Flight 447 departed Rio de Janeiro International Airport at 10:29 local time, p.m., and it was scheduled to fly to the Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport approximately 10 hours and 34 minutes. It was an Airbus A330 with 216 passengers, 12 crew members, and 3 pilots. Okay, everything's normal, right? You're just on a giant plane headed to Paris. Life is wonderful. Around 2:06 a.m., the plane encountered icing conditions, which eventually caused the autopilot to disengage. And so First Officer Pierre-Cedric Bonin took manual control, which I don't think is like super abnormal, but the fact that autopilot turned off like triggered a bunch of stuff. It like switched, and I didn't write this down, but it switched like kind of like the mode of the plane. So like the mode like that the computer.
So it wasn't on airplane mode anymore?
No, it wasn't on airplane mode anymore.
That's why they tell you to turn your phones off.
That's probably what it was. What if it was like, and someone had their phone on, and then they hit turbulence, and this whole thing happened? So the plane encounters turbulence, and because it's not on autopilot anymore, it starts to roll to the right, which is scary. And so Bonin, the captain, counters the roll, but because the autopilot was not on, the controls were like extra sensitive to rolling, so he overcorrected by accident. And in addition to overcorrecting, which is now causing the plane to like go back and forth, because now he's trying to overcorrect he's trying to correct the overcorrection. Mm-hmm. He also pulled back on the stick, and they don't know why he did this or if it was intentional or whatever, but that of course caused the nose to go up. Mm-hmm. And that also caused the plane to, like, go up, like, in altitude. Mm-hmm. So, all right.
Because that's typically how you climb in altitude.
That's how you climb, yes. Okay. So, stay with me, everyone. I'm using hand motions that only Katy can see. Okay. So, this increased the rate of climb, which is usually no greater than 2,000 feet per minute, to close to 7,000 feet per minute. So, they're going up really fast. Yep. By 2:11, it had reached...
Depending on how... Oh, shoot, that must have been... must have been really steep.
It's terrifying.
It's been really fast. That would be very uncomfortable for all the passengers, I feel like.
By 2:11, it had reached the maximum altitude of 38,000 feet, and it was at a 16-degree angle, which you want to be at a 0-degree angle. Yeah. And then as it descended, so they're trying to bring it back down, but instead of bringing the nose back down, the angle is increasing, and it increased to 30 degrees.
At what angle do planes stall?
About 30 degrees. So
take a sip, everyone.
Yep. So another fun consequence of not being on autopilot is autopilot, like, has provisions so that you cannot get to that steep of an angle. So they're at a 30-degree angle, the wings lose lift, and the plane stalls. There is then a series of terrifying voice recordings in which all three pilots are trying to correct the situation. Also, all three pilots are realizing that they can't correct the situation, that they don't have control of the plane, that there's nothing they can do. Thankfully, I don't think you can listen to them, surely, but they have, like, the transcripts of them. No, thank you. Not good. It took 3 minutes and 30 seconds to descend 35,000 feet. The plane descended at 124 miles per hour. It had rotated nearly 180 degrees because it stalled the entire time. So it's literally just...
It's not flying. It's falling with style.
It's not even falling with style. It's just falling. Just 3.5 minutes. 3.5 minutes, everyone, of falling. Mm.
That is a really long time.
It's a really long time to know that you're about to
crash and die.
When it hit the ocean, it was going 175 miles per hour, and everyone died on impact. And after several searches that spanned until 2011, 74 bodies remain uncovered, presumably still strapped into their seats at the bottom of the ocean. And that's why I'm never getting on a plane again, because that shit can just happen.
I wish I had more, details at the ready, but one of the pilots that I fly with, the reason that he is a pilot is because he survived a plane crash on land.
Oh, no.
And you can actually see the video online. I'll try and find the video, but you can actually watch the plane crash. And I mean, crash land. Because the pilot, I forget what the deal was, but it was like a major, failure, engine failure, malfunction, something or other. And the pilot was able to save, I think, over half of the passengers on the plane. Including, obviously, your guy. This pilot. And he was little, too.
Oh, gosh.
He was a child. But basically...
Good for him for going the right direction. I mean, not that there's a right and wrong,
embracing the fear.
Yeah.
But no, basically, he was so inspired by this pilot. Because, basically, if he hadn't done what he did, or, basically, if he had been less good of a pilot, everyone would have died. But he was able to save, I think, over half of the people on that plane.
Jeez.
So...
It's like a Sully moment.
Yeah.
American hero. Except I always, whenever anyone mentions Sully,
I just think of Family Guy and Quagmire and such.
Oh, I think of 30 Rock when... Did you watch that?
Yeah.
With Carol, aka Matt Damon.
Yeah.
He's like, do you know what good pilots do? Not fly into birds.
Yeah.
He's like, I do that every day. Oh, man. I'm sorry that you have to fly again fairly soon.
Yeah.
This is, I'm so scared to get on a plane now.
Thankfully, several other of my coworkers and interns and stuff enjoy it, and so I don't kind of have to.
You have a child now.
Yeah. I mean, my boss is okay with me not getting back in the air anytime soon, I think.
Oh, good. I mean, but, I'll take care of the critter if anything happens to you. I know I'm not his godmother, but...
I haven't flown in a year now, because when I was first pregnant...
Yeah.
Way too sick to even consider getting in an airplane. And then by the time I was feeling better, I was, far enough along that I'm like, I'm really not comfortable getting in a plane.
Fair. I'm never comfortable anymore.
So real quick, before we get back to Malaysia,
yeah,
do you think it's possible that when the autopilot got shut off, and it started rolling to the right, do you think that's possible that some of the readings or the what am I talking about on the dash, the little monitors,
I don't know, the readings, the gauges,
that might be it.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry for everyone listening that is like yelling the word that I'm thinking of, and I'm too dumb to think of it. But basically, like, it says you're rolling further to the right than you actually are. It could be that the gauges were kind of off slightly, so that's why they overcorrected. because they thought that, like, oh, we think we're here when really they're here.
Yeah.
Again, I'm using hand signals just like Hannah. So yeah, they thought they were further than they actually were. Mm-hmm. So they went by what the reading was to overcorrect that, or to correct it. And
yeah. I think it's...
Or you think they just overcorrected it?
I think it was...
I'm making it more complicated.
I think there truly was a difference in the sensitivity of the instruments. You know how when
instruments, that's a word I
there you go.
Used.
You know when you get in someone else's car and you're driving it for the first time and, like, sometimes their gas pedal is, like, more sensitive than yours, their brake pedal. Just more sensitive than what you're used to.
Yeah.
I imagine if you've been flying on autopilot for a bit and you're used to that kind of sensitivity... Because it made it sound like when he's kind of going back and forth that he was just kind of getting used to the way, and like the real mistake was actually when he pulled back on the stick because that's what brought the nose up.
They just kept it level. They might have been able to pull out of it with just, a fun barrel roll.
A fun little barrel roll. I also now feel like I need to be like that dick that's like, I need to talk to the pilot before every flight and just be like, listen, how long have you been flying? When was the last time the plane was checked? Like, how many incidences did the plane have? What do you do if you get to a 16-degree angle?
I mean, I'm not trying to belittle pilots everywhere or anything, but when I go flying, again, not a commercial airliner, the pilots sometimes let me fly. My grandfather is a pilot. And again, these are little prop planes.
Yeah.
But I have flown, I think it was probably like a 30-minute flight or so. And I did everything but take off and land.
See, knowing everything now, knowing that just getting the wrong angle can, like, fuck up your whole flight, I'm no longer comfortable with that. Because I think I
thought you were going to say you were impressed with me.
I mean, I am impressed, but also, like, I would be terrified if I was in the plane with you.
Well, it was really funny when Grandpa, we got up there, once everything was where we were, and he checked in with the tower, he's like, we're going that way. And so I steered us that way, and anytime my heading got off a little this way or that way, he's like, we need to go more that way? We need to go more that way? And then he's like, all right. We're here, I'm taking back over, and he landed, and we had breakfast with a bunch of other old pilots. And then we took off, and on our way back, after I had, like, gorged myself on delicious, southern breakfast foods, I have to emphasize that it's southern breakfast, you know it's heavy. Yeah. He goes, do you like roller coasters? And I said, yes, absolutely I do.
Oh, no.
And I was in the back, and he hands me a screwdriver, and he's like, here, hold the screwdriver in your palm, open.
A screwdriver seems a dangerous thing to do this trick with, because I know what he's about to do. Just saying.
And he went up, and then he went down. Ooh. And then we went back up, and so the screwdriver would levitate, and then come down, and then levitate, and then come back down.
I saw a video of that happening to a dog in the back of a plane. And my first thought was, why was the dog not prepared for this? Seems like if you're gonna...
Why is he not wearing a seatbelt?
Yeah! He's just, like, floating around in the back of the cabin. Oh, man. Alright, back to our fun Malaysian flight. Yeah. Okay, so we have these pings off of the
British tech.
Yes, what's it called?
IMSAT.
Inmarsat.
Thank you.
So there were 7 pings total with the Inmarsat satellite. The last one was at 8:19 a.m. So we know that the plane was still functioning at 8:19 a.m.
Wasn't it supposed to land at like 6?
Yes, 6:30.
So they were in the air for 2 hours longer than they were supposed to be.
Yes. So the information gathered from the pings...
Or at least the plane was functional enough to ping.
Yeah, it was in the air for 2.
Okay, so they were able to confirm that it was in the air.
For the most part. There is not a lot that we can actually confirm. There's a lot we can heavily imply.
Well, I mean, I know with the transponder you said that they could, would send data like its altitude and everything. Yes. I didn't know if the way that this was pinging would be able to confirm altitude.
Actually, it might have. I don't know. It got very technical And I mostly focused on just what the information was that we got and not how we got it.
Okay. Sorry. I have lots of questions, as always,
That's okay. Okay, so the information gathered from the pings. It couldn't tell, it couldn't tell an exact location. It was kind of like, I think it was kind of like cell phone towers, where it kind of gives you a general idea. And so if they say like it's 100 miles away, it could either be 100 miles here or 100 miles there, or 100. So
it's within a 100-mile radius.
Yes. So they knew that either the plane went north and it would have ended up over Kazakhstan, or it went south and ended up over the Indian Ocean. It also indicated that the power to the cabin had been turned off and the plane had increased its altitude. So it basically means that everyone in the cabin died. So you turn off the power, you are depressurizing the cabin. I was really worried for a minute that it was like that explosive decompression that we talked about in the Oceans episode. It wasn't that. I checked. I read a whole article. Everyone just died of hypoxia, which is...
no oxygen.
No oxygen.
They suffocated.
Peaceful way to go, though. Not like suddenly no oxygen. Like gradually no oxygen.
They got tired.
They got real tired. Here's a fun fact. The oxygen masks that come down, they only have about 10 or 15 minutes worth of oxygen in them. So if your emergency is longer than 10 to 15 minutes, you're screwed. I also watched a fun video. It was like a training thing for...
So if they come down, don't panic and hyperventilate.
No, but that's why they say put yours on first before you put a child's on, because the effects of hypoxia are hard to recognize, but they happen quickly, and it's like confusion. And so if you wait too long and you're trying to get the kid's mask on, you might be too confused after that to put yours on. Whereas if you get yours on and the kid's a little confused, it's fine. Slap some oxygen on him. But this video I watched, it was linked. It's linked in one of the articles I'll link. Because this guy was saying he took a flight and they forgot to pressurize the cabin. Which was what I was thinking of when you were talking about the checklist. But I was like, oh my God.
See, that's why it's important to not slack off. Check your mirrors and go through the checklist.
My nose started bleeding. People's eyeballs blood vessels started popping.
Oh.
But yeah.
I would have sued that airline so much.
I'm sure they did. So there's a video of like some kind of pilot training, and they put pilots with oxygen masks in a hyperbaric chamber, and then they like lower the oxygen, I guess. And then they have one take his mask off. And then this one, they were having him draw a card from a deck of cards and tell everyone what the card was and show it. And you see within and he was supposed to be reporting what his symptoms were. And like 3 cards in, he's like, and this is the 4 of spades. And this is the 4 of spades. And this one, 4 of spades, everyone. 4 of spades. And they're like, what are you feeling right now? And he's like, the 4 of spades? So like...
He's basically like, I can only say these words. It's I am Groot.
Yeah, I was waiting for them to be like, okay, one of you guys put his back on. Because at what point does this get dangerous? I don't know. This episode of The Tales We Tell is brought to you by the Crafty Criminologist. Do you love cute and creepy stationery and stickers? What about ghoulish earrings and adorable ghosts? Then check out The Crafty Criminologist on Etsy and Instagram. She makes stickers, jewelry, study guides, and more. Just go to Etsy.com and search @Crafty Criminologist, and be sure to use code TheTalesWeTell at checkout for 15% off your order. That's The Tales We Tell for 15% off. So other things that they could determine from the pings is that MH370 flew for approximately 6 to 7 more hours after it dropped off the air traffic control radar.
How much fuel did they have in this plane?
Enough for 6 or 7 hours more. But they weren't that far into the flight. Let's see. It left at... Did I say what time it left?
Yeah.
It left at 12:42. So it was like less than an hour into the flight that it disappeared.
How long was the flight supposed to be?
It was supposed to be like 5.5 hours, I think.
Okay.
I think I said that somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can understand them putting, like, obviously, like, if it's going to be a 5.5 hour flight, don't put 5.5 hours of fuel in there. Put more than that.
Yeah, a little more.
But my understanding is they wouldn't put too much more because then it would be heavier and then they're going to have to burn through more. And I don't know how all the math of that works.
Well, about an hour and a half's more worth of fuel. So they also determined that the change in course was intentional and likely not an act of terrorism or caused by any kind of instrument failure. So it wasn't like it was flying. It wasn't like the Air France situation.
So, like, basically the pilots decided for whatever reason, they're like, you know what? We're not going to go to our destination. We're going to turn around.
Yes. And the most likely outcome based on this data is that MH370 crashed in the Indian Ocean when it finally ran out of fuel. And because the search had been concentrated in the wrong area for so long, because the government and others did not
took their sweet time
report their data.
Yeah, I remember that being a thing.
Yeah, they were looking in the completely wrong area. So when they did get the information that they should be looking in the Indian Ocean, which, by the way, is a fucking huge ocean. I mean, not the biggest one, but big.
It's significant.
It's big. Sorry, I just got a text from Lisa from the shelter. Right after our meet and greet with Scooby, some guy drove by and he's like, there's a thief running that way. There was like some kid that had stolen something from him. And so we helped chase down this kid.
Stick Scooby on him.
We thought about doing that, and then he had caught him by the time we got there, and I just kind of filmed a little bit of it for, like, you know, just in case. The kid was like 14. Whatever. Okay, so they didn't have a lot to go on because all they knew is the plane crashed somewhere in the Indian Ocean. And so much time had passed that there wasn't, like, an oil slick or, like, any debris or anything that they could be looking for. So they didn't really know where to look. I mean, they looked, but they didn't really know where to, and they didn't find anything. And it wasn't until 2015 that the first piece of wreckage, which was a 6-foot piece of the plane, washed up on Reunion Island off the coast of Madagascar. So this confirmed that the plane had crashed into the ocean. And it's really sad because up until that point, the families had all been kind of holding on to this hope that, like, because they hadn't found the plane, like, because it had seemed to just disappear.
That it just went through a temporal wormhole.
Yeah. Like,
we'll see him again in 5 years.
Yeah. Like, there's a bunch of shows about that. Like,
Manifest.
And Lost, I think. I don't know what Lost was about, honestly. I watched it a long time ago.
A lot of people don't, but...
So
a lot more people think they do, but I probably don't.
I give up on it.
It took me 3 tries, but I finally finished the entire series.
Oh, I don't know where I stopped. I was a sophomore in college when I stopped watching it.
I never watched it while it was on. I started watching it on Netflix, and then I was like, I need a break, because I was binging it.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, I tried again, and I got further, and then I just couldn't do it anymore. And then this last time, a couple years ago, I powered right through.
Powered through it. Would have been a good quarantine show.
I might have actually watched it during quarantine.
Yeah,
I don't know.
good.
But I mean, I was still working, so quarantine was whatever.
Okay, so this confirmed their loved ones were not alive, unfortunately, unless by some act of God, whatever. Everyone was dead.
Do you think that they turned around because something was happening, and then by the time, I don't know, because the way they went, they turned around and they kind of came back and then made another weird right turn. Do you think at some point then is when the cabin got depressurized and, like, everybody died and it was just a plane just flying full of dead people before it ran out of fuel and crashed?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And I will tell you
that
I have given you clues to a major theory. And I gave you clues. That's all I'm going to say.
4 of spades.
It's not that. That would be funny if that was the answer to everything.
4 of spades.
So since that first piece of debris, there have been dozens of pieces that have been recovered. And they think that likely the plane just sank on impact and broke up and then sank. And obviously no bodies have been recovered and probably will never be. Okay. So, theories. The most plausible theory is, and I think the most widely believed theory, is that someone on the plane intentionally disabled the transponder because it was turned off almost exactly at the same time that they were entering new airspace, like 5 seconds afterwards. Turned the plane around, depressurized the cabin, killing all the passengers, and then put the plane on autopilot to fly out over the ocean until it ran out of fuel. There are only 2 people on board who would have been capable of doing that, and that would be Captain Zahari or First Officer Farik. Captain Zahari has some things that make him maybe more likely to do this. So in the months leading up to the crash, he had separated from his wife, he was living alone, and he was having some kind of affair, possibly sexual, possibly emotional, with a married woman. And I also read that it I don't want to say involved her kids because that sounds gross, but like I think he had become very attached to her kids and like he was really something.
He was a figure in their life and vice versa.
Yes, he was very invested in this. He was also very active on social media, and he was also very active on a flight simulator program that he had at home that he just used as a hobby. And I think he would like post videos about it and stuff. So when they looked into the flight simulator, all of the flights that he had done were normal, except for one, which was a flight that was plotted with its destination being the Indian Ocean. And the simulator would have shown him the different, like the fuel levels. So the idea is if he wanted to do this and he wanted to make sure that the plane was over water and not over land when it ran out of fuel, this would have been a good like dry run to make sure if he took this course.
Dry run.
Dry run.
Because the ocean's not dry.
Because the ocean's not dry, famously. Oh, man. We ran out of wine too quick. So it also would have been pretty easy for Captain Zahiri to find a reason for First Officer Farik to leave the cockpit. He was known as someone who wanted to kind of know all the details of everything. So to get Farik to go, like, all he has to do is get him out of the cockpit and then close that cockpit door and cha-ching, lock it. There's also a possibility, of course, that he killed himself also. He killed everyone on board, or whoever did this, killed everyone on board. Could have also very easily killed themselves before that put the plane on autopilot, and it would just do its thing. His family denies that he would do anything like this, but the last, so if we look really quick at the weird flight path, so it turned around, it basically did a flyby of the island of Penang, which is where
the married woman?
No, that's where Officer Zahiri was from. That's where he was born and where he grew up. So they kind of think, like, maybe he did one final flyby of his hometown and then set it on autopilot and made sure, and knew because he had already run the simulator that it would run out of fuel over the ocean. Some other fun theories. There's only one of these. Well, I'm not going to say I like it. You know what? Forget I said anything. I'm just going to tell you the theories. These are conspiracy theories. Okay. There were 2 passengers on board who were Iranian men with stolen passports. Obviously, some people hear that and think terrorists.
Yep.
They were probably asylum seekers. Terrorist organizations famously take credit for the stuff that they do. No one did that in this case. And they, like, looked into these men and they didn't have any, like, ties to terrorist groups.
Yeah, because I was thinking, like, potentially someone who didn't want to be known by like someone who was on the run from somewhere in Vietnam. Didn't want to be, you know, like, oh, if you're in our airspace, then maybe we have jurisdiction to ground the plane and get this, you know, person.
That'd be very extreme.
Yeah.
I feel like. I mean, not that what happened was not extreme.
Yeah.
Whoops.
But, I mean, how would a passenger know 5 seconds after entering Vietnamese airspace?
Yeah, passengers don't. I mean, I guess you could be watching that little map on the back of your headrest.
That's true.
But
not all planes have that.
And they're not always that accurate. I feel like, I don't know.
One plane, I think it was when we were going to India, maybe. I think it wasn't Latam. Forget what airline we were, but they had a thing that showed you which way was Mecca, so that Muslims could pray.
That's nice.
And they would always know, like, okay, this is where I need to face. So.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool.
Very cool. So there were also 20 passengers on the plane that were all from a company called Freescale Semiconductor. I didn't look up what that company does because it sounds really boring. But there was a theory, and I think this is just based on the fact that there were 20 people from the same company. There's a theory...
Maybe they were having a conference.
They probably were. So there's a theory that the plane was, like, cyberjacked or whatever to intentionally kill these Freescale Semiconductor employees in order to either protect sensitive
corporate espionage,
corporate secrets, or manipulate stock prices or something. My favorite theory, which I know I just said I wasn't going to call it my favorite. I was about to call you on that. It's so dumb. Okay, so this theory says that the CIA hijacked or cyberjacked MH370, killed everyone. I don't know where they did this. They took it somewhere. And then repurposed it and renamed it MH17. Does that flight number sound familiar at all? Mm-mm. Okay. July of 2014, so a couple months later, Malaysian Flight 17 flew from Kuala Lumpur, supposed to be going to Amsterdam, and it was shot down over Ukraine by pro-Russian forces. So this conspiracy theory says that was actually MH370, and that allegedly there were reports that the bodies at the crash site were already decomposing. And so they were bodies from 2 months ago. Except that the Dutch government examined and identified all but 2 of the bodies. And also, that opens a whole new conspiracy theory to what happened to the actual people, that got on Flight 17. Yep. Because they're real people, too. I like to think it's just an endless loop of conspiracy theories about what happened to flights. So, all of those theories are very silly. There was another one that Captain Zahari parachuted out of the plane before it crashed and landed on an island to be with the woman he was having an affair with.
You could easily interview the woman.
Also, it's not, okay. So, none of these theories, including ones about, mechanical failures or fires or a medical emergency, none of those explain the flight path, which I think is the most confusing thing about everything, is that it was for sure an intentional change in the flight.
I'd have to study the map again and actually look and see, well, where's airports where this could land, but it would probably make more sense for it to land, if there's a medical emergency, to land in Vietnam instead of trying to go back to Malaysia. Yeah. Especially since they didn't do a full 180. Yeah. They did like a
160. Yeah. And then a 90, I don't know.
And then
all I know 45. Is 16 degrees. Or, sorry, 30 degrees. It's the bad one. Ugh.
Because we had to, when we were going to Argentina, or when we were going to Uruguay, we were flying from Miami to...
Belize?
No, Lima.
Oh.
No. Somewhere else. We had to make an emergency landing in Lima.
Ooh. I was going to say, I only know so many South American countries.
So, yeah, basically we were flying, and then the pilot came on and was like, FYI, we're turning around and we're making, an emergency landing in Lima for a medical emergency. We're going to refuel while we're there, and then we'll take off.
Yikes.
And, we should be in our destination at this time, or, we'll be delayed by this much. And it was a bit of a worry that we might not, because some people are going to miss their connecting flight kind of a thing. And, of course, most of that was in Spanish.
Nice.
But I think the person had a stroke, because I actually saw him being carried down the aisle, over somebody's shoulders. And I think I was in the back. And it was really weird, because we were close to the back of the plane, where they had taken this passenger and then brought, the stair car, and saw him wheeled out.
Jeez.
And put into the ambulance. And so I went to the bathroom at the back of the plane, and they still had the door open. And so I was just standing there, and I could, lean out, and I was like, these planes are a lot taller than you realize. That is a fall.
That's a fall.
Because the stair car from Arrested Development is a lot shorter. I'm going to tell you that right now.
So it'd be very scary if you had to actually slide down the inflatable slide. Yeah.
I know, that might be fun, because it's slide.
I feel like they only pull that out if you're on water. So again,
They'll do it on land too.
I'm never flying again. I've just decided I'm gonna see how long it's gonna take to drive to Florida this winter, because I'm just not getting on a plane. So MH370 is officially classified as missing, even though they know
recovered parts. Debris.
Yeah, they kind of know what happened in terms of it crashed. But they've never recovered the plane. They've never recovered any passengers.
Is this the part where you also tell me that, there's this number of other missing flights?
No. But I will tell you, I forgot to mention this, which I don't know if I wrote it down. I just remember it in my brain. The theory about Captain Zahari, that's happened 4 other times where a pilot has done a murder-suicide mission, where they've killed everyone on their plane and killed themselves. I didn't look up those 4 times because that sounded real bleak.
I think I'm going to start getting on the plane and ask the flight attendant and be like, you know what? Can you please tell the pilots that they're special and they're loved. Their lives are worth living.
Yep.
And I hope they're having a great day.
Just ask.
Just make sure they're in a good headspace
You should ask automatically for the name of the pilot's therapist, and then if they're like, they don't have therapists, be like, no, I'm not getting on this plane. Everyone needs a therapist. And if I'm just saying. Okay, MH370 is also the only unexplained vessel in modern aviation history. And
okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to scare me with, there's been 17 other flights go missing.
No.
I mean, there's one.
There's one.
Amelia Earhart, right?
Oh, yeah.
At least one other.
Well, didn't they... Okay, well, now that makes... Well, was she not modern aviation history?
I don't know what you just... Well, maybe.
Or do they think that they've recovered her plane on that island?
I can't remember.
I
I don't keep up with that. We should look that up.
We should look that up. I also thought of a really... I was, debating in my head. I was like, should I save this as an episode idea? It's just the I feel like collective trauma that many of us went through as children when we had to either read or watch the Left Behind series, which Catholics didn't... Okay. Baptists teach you, or taught me in the 90s, that Jesus was going to come back, but not in the sky where everyone could see him. All the Christians were just going to disappear in the rapture, and you were just going to disappear out of your clothes. And so the way that they open this stupid movie with Kirk Cameron is on a fucking plane, and all of a sudden, half the plane just disappears. And let me tell you, 9-year-old me, no. And then the whole, I think I read most of the book series. I don't know how. You know what, Jarek, save this and tell me to email my therapist, because speaking of
the trauma of
anxiety that I've had my whole life, Like, the whole series is just, it's literally a biblical apocalypse, but it starts with people disappearing on a plane. And I don't know why that's so much scarier to me. What I was going to say as my closer that I wrote out nicely is the mystery of MH370 is not necessarily what happened, but why it happened. Because my theory is Captain Zahari did it.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I like that one best.
Yeah. Why? What would drive a man to do something like that? Because that is a really, really awful thing to do.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm also wondering, too, if, if he was unhappy, there's 1,000 other ways that if he wanted to end his life, he could have done himself without taking the lives of all these other innocent people.
Yeah.
It could be that he was truly insane and decided that, A, they're not innocent people. They're all evil, too. But also, you said he was, 53 or something like that?
Yeah.
He's getting close to retirement age, mm-hmm. and I'm wondering if this was the reason that he chose to go out this way was to hurt the airline. If he was having some sort of, retirement or even, work-related snafu.
Yeah. Well, and there were theories of, a cover-up, and I read a lot that, the Malaysian government wasn't necessarily forthcoming. And it wasn't because they thought that it wasn't because they did something wrong and they knew it. It's because they didn't know what happened and they were afraid.
They didn't want to admit that.
And they were afraid that, stuff would come out that would be, embarrassing. Mm-hmm. Because I think at the time, Malaysian Airlines was, if not majority owned, but, a lot owned by the state. Mm. And so it was kind of a big deal. I never thought of that. That makes a lot of sense that if he wanted to hurt the airline. Still shitty because as a pilot you are...
Well, it could also be a statement against the government now that we know that the government is a large part owner of said airline.
Yeah. Still killed 200 and some people.
Yeah, no.
So not great.
That's still, there's lots of other ways to make a statement. But
lots of, maybe take an empty plane up one day.
I mean, also, it doesn't seem very effective as making a statement, though. Unless it was very targeted.
Yeah, because we don't know what happened.
Well, I mean, and that's why I'm thinking, there might be a couple of people, managers or something, who are we know exactly what, we know why he was doing this.
I wonder if the lady who's having an affair with,
if she might know.
Because, obviously you hear he's having an affair. Talk. Yeah, and you're maybe she broke up with him and said she didn't want him in her life or her kid's life, and he was just so depressed. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for coming over.
Can I have one more conspiracy theory?
Oh, yeah.
Suggestion?
Please.
What if she was no, I'm not leaving my husband for you because he's awesome. And, I'd only leave you if you were some hero guy. You're not good enough now. So he's I know. I'll come up with this elaborate thing of, terrorists tried to hijack the plane and send us off on some crazy path, and I overcame the terrorists and it was able to save these passengers, but he made a mistake in it and killed everyone.
What if it was the co-pilot? We just kind of skipped right over him. I mean, he's 27.
But I mean, he was about to be a full-time pilot. He had things going for him. He had good things coming on in his life potentially.
The simulator thing is really damning. That's not great for him. For whatever.
Yeah, the actual captain.
Well, cancel all your flights. Everyone, stay on the ground. Katie, what are our socials?
You can find us on Instagram and also a picture of that flight plan that we talked about and come up with your own theories at the Tales We Tell podcast. If you want to see our pictures and goodies without being on the social media, you can go to our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. And if you want to support us with some sweet, sweet swag, go to redbubble.com, search The Tales We Tell. We can get our multiple logos on pretty much anything. Yes. And if you want to support us but don't need stuff except maybe some love notes and stickers and some extra bonus content, you can become patrons at patreon.com, search The Tales We Tell.
Yay!
And you have a lovely evening.
Yep.
Gentle listeners.
And we will see everyone next week. Bye.